So for episode 2, we really focused in on character. So we really wanted to figure out who this character was. Now that we had a rough look at them, I went away and I sort of came up with what I thought Sam would be. We decided that they were going to be intentionally unstated about who they were. They were in their late 20s, early 30s. They would live a solitary life. They have lost a version of themselves, not just a person. They were troubled, right? We decided that from the very beginning. We didn't know if it was a breakup, a death, a career collapse, something, but we decided that this character was in a bad place when we found them. They had an emotional wound and they like to avoid things, right? This was a character who tried to just pretend things weren't happening, which becomes really important as we get into the story. They're quietly anxious, they're highly observant, they're not dramatic, they internalize their stress, and they what really are affected by the things around them. Okay, so that was sort of what we started to decide was going to be our character. And then the door. The door actually becomes a character in and of itself. So it represents that belief that the hidden answers are just outside. There's loss, there's pain, there's dissatisfaction. The door became this force, and the door morphs into the main character by the time we get to the end of the story. So it's this feeling that once the door is opened, the story ends. And this was really important to decide before we got any further into designing Sam as a person. We needed to know who they were.
And what was really interesting, while you were explaining this again, what's really interesting is a lot of your thoughts about this character came about because of the visuals that I created
Absolutely.
from episode one. And the door and Sam being these characters, evoking certain feelings, certain uh, technical aspects of what the story was going to be. That got Sarah to really
Mhm.
expand upon who this character was, which then in turn gave me more ideas to visually put down for this character. And so, if you're coming from this, from the aspect of like, I'm working with somebody and we're going to work back and forth, I'm not going to necessarily have like a script finished. If you have a script, maybe it's just a starting place. It's like a living document
Mhm.
because what works really well in this situation is that one idea is feeds off of another idea, feeds off of another idea. We kind of bounce ideas back and forth, and that develops the story. So it takes it to a place where it's not really anything that either it was just me or just Sarah. It's
Mhm.
kind of the both of us together, and that's the really fun part about this whole experience so far.
Absolutely. And that collaboration is every episode has had a strong element of that. Even if we've gone separately and done a part and then brought it together, it's always been based on what the other person had suggested. And like Keith mentioned, a lot of what I put down about the character was based on that first piece of art. So that's why in episode 2, we could really expand because we had this strong base of both visually as well as description, who this character was and who the door was. The door being its own character in the comic book.
And so, just on the technical aspect of what you're seeing here while I'm drawing this character, I'm trying to figure out the character, different poses, mainly from the bust up, just to get a sense of what they're like when they are forward, side, up, down. That's just really me becoming more familiar with the space the character takes up, the shape of their head. Is it in this case? It's like a teardrop shape, so it's a bit pointed at the chin, a bit wider up here. Figuring out like, are they a youngish person and they middle aged person? They have a bit of a line in their face. Are they big personality, small personality? These are all things I'm thinking about. And when it comes to the visual element of this, and a lot of that comes from the description I got from Sarah in regards to what they're bringing to this room, this why they're there, why they're present in this place at the particular time. And all of that kind of informs me how I should have this character act out.
And the interesting thing too is we never really described in any direction whether this character was male or female.
No.
We just kind of were, this is Sam. And it's just kind of this character that it doesn't really matter because of the kind of story that we're telling. And the look of the character as we were going through and Keith was illustrating is it was kind of evolving. We were noticing different things. We were starting to talk about the hair as such an important factor, and that's going to come up in subsequent episodes.